So this is a very shiny New Balance trainer. This whole region here is very shiny. Now what's happening is, if we look at the roughness pass, there's like a phasing effect. Now this phasing effect is because when we did the scan of this object, we used a few loops. So we didn't have a nice even coverage. We used a few loops. So there's regions here where a camera can see a reflected light that bounces this way. There's like a gap. So anything that would have bounced off in this direction is completely invisible. So it's like we get a bounce, we can see it, we get a bounce, we can see it, and then boom, there's nothing. And then we see a bounce again here, and then the same for there. So it's kind of like things are coming in and out of phase. So the heat map pretty much perfectly lines up with this phasing effect, particularly on the roughness channel, because we're getting areas where you've got this kind of reflected light source. So this reflected light source, we're seeing it in our photography, we're seeing the flash, and then we're moving a little bit, and then we're seeing another reflected light source. And if you have enough of these little motions of the camera, all of those reflections are going to kind of come together and cover the whole image in things where we can and can't see the reflected light. And because we've done loops, we're going to get all of these reflections very close together along one axis that we can see here. So we've got lots of camera reflections there. But then in terms of moving up, we can't actually see anything. Like there's no way for us to ever see a reflected region within this area. And that's why our ability to predict the roughness suddenly drops. So here we've got a very accurate roughness prediction. We're saying that this thing is very smooth, the roughness is very low. And then all of a sudden within this area where we didn't have enough camera coverage, we have no idea. We're never seeing that reflected light. There's like a gap in our knowledge. Now you will notice that on this area, the fabric, we still have this phasing pattern on the heat map, but it doesn't impact the predictions. And the reason for that is because this is already so rough, those reflected highlights are now really big. So even though the spacing of the cameras hasn't changed, those kind of like, it's like a Venn diagram almost, those circles cover one another up. So you don't actually ever see that phasing pattern following through into the predictions. Whereas when it's very glossy, it does. So getting good coverage, it isn't just about having lots of cameras. It's about having evenly spaced cameras. So we've scanned this object twice. We've scanned it one with this phase pattern where we've done loops. And then I've also scanned it with pretty much the same amount of cameras, but now they're really evenly spaced. So let's have a look at how this prediction comes out. So this is the same object from a slightly different distribution of cameras. So completely different alignment. This is done at a slightly lower resolution, so that's why the detail isn't quite the same. So what we can see is, even though we've got roughly about the same amount of cameras, the white point, i.e. the roughest part of the object, is still the same. The glossiest part of the object is still the same, so this region here. But we don't have this weird phase pattern because we no longer have areas where we're unlikely to see that reflected light. So that really is just the impact of having a much better distribution of cameras. So really just having that nice even spread of cameras completely removes that weird phase pattern that you're getting. In some really extreme cases, you might scan an object where you go over the top and you go over the side, and that might be more than enough for a photogrammetry scan. But this is why when you do a Marceau scan, it's really important that you actually get a nice even distribution of camera positions so that you don't get these phase patterns appearing. And what we can see is we've still got all of the detail of these scuffs and scratches where the shoe's been worn, but it's nice and clean.